November, was it as rubbish as you foresaw?
Kind of, yeah. We had people here on the ground, which was interesting. So people were able to travel. I don't think many are traveling. I think people are still kind of deciding and opting to stay at home, which is understandable. After all, we can't get to too many places without a big palaver. But the people who were here, what I noticed about them was because there aren't many of them here, there isn't that sense that they're in a competing environment. So they're probably feeling that the demand isn't great. So if it's not something that's on the agenda to do right now, and they want to do maybe buy next year, then why should they bother doing it now? So we've got quite a few clients who have said to us that they're going to be coming back once they are able to come back in a more relaxed environment and take their time and blah blah blah. I suspect that's going to be into the new year now. Um, so that's kind of the feeling of it. I don't know about the stats with other agents and things like that. As I say, the activity is down a little bit, but there's still people there, still people in the market. But in terms of kind of pushing into a decision, people are again just starting to take their time a little bit. And I think it's December now, November, it's nearly December. Oh, it's nearly Christmas. Oh, it's nearly New Year. Oh, then we've got to get the kids back to school. Oh, and we'll look at it again in end of January. I think we're in that kind of mentality zone at the moment, which is understandable.
Would it be fair to say that the positive news of vaccines is changing the outlook to a much more positive one, both from you and your team's point of view, as well as the people that you're speaking to?
Yeah, it is. We're having slightly different conversations now because we didn't have. I mean, we still don't really have an end date in sight as to when this is all going to end and when we're all going to be able to take to the skies again with no worries. But the conversations are shifting to when rather than whenever. So we're talking now to clients, and a lot of those people that we're talking to who are serious about doing something are talking about just getting on a plane whenever they can, which is likely to be maybe January, maybe February. Um, and so, yeah, we're still not there yet, but there's more optimism in the market for sure.
And when would you imagine? Do you think we're going to see a similar situation to what we had in July, when the first lockdown ended? Is there going to be all this pent up demand? Is it going to be a certain mini boom, where we're going to see
I
a
think there
big
has to
amount
be.
of buyers just turning up here all of a sudden and creating some strange situation?
I think there has to be, Alfredo, and the reason is not necessarily because of the way the property prices are or the market is moving. It's because of all the hard work that we're doing and other agents are doing behind the scenes. We are speaking to hundreds and hundreds of clients who are expressing a willingness to buy and a desire to buy. They simply aren't able to at the moment, or it's really difficult for them. Maybe 10% of our potential buyers are managing to get here, but 90% of them aren't. But we're still having really positive conversations with those people. The desire is still there. And they're all talking about coming over and buying something whenever they can. So if they are all, like you said, like in July, when all of a sudden the skies opened and people were able to get here, we were rushed up our feet. And the difference between July and kind of previous months and previous years was that our conversion rate was sky high because the people that actually made the effort to come here, who were looking at property, they'd done all their research with us. They'd worked for 6 months looking at hundreds of properties virtually, by email, whatever, and they're a lot further down the sales funnel. So I do expect that when people are able to travel and they get here en masse, that we're going to see a splurge of sales activity. Yes.
And for a percentage of agents that have opted for, I suppose everybody has to some degree, but for really batten down the hatches and kind of stop their marketing activities whilst during this period. Perhaps those that aren't traditionally as strong with their sort of pipelines and don't really have the tech to nurture the leads and all that kind of thing, or the finance. If we're looking into perhaps mid quarter one, at some point we start to see some life again in volume, even though there are still people trickling through. Um, should they be starting to spend again now in December, or should they hold fire till January? I mean, there is obviously a period from typically from lead to viewing, a period of time that takes place. Do they run the risk of missing the boat completely if they wait till the last minute? What do you think on that? What would be your advice?
Yeah, they do run a risk because you would hope if you're a business like ours that spends a lot of time by email, on phones, by WhatsApp, virtual tours. So a lot of time preparing and working with a client. You would hope that when the time comes for those clients to travel, that they would stick with us, and they would say, okay, we're going to stick with Cloud9 or whichever agent they're working with because they've given us a load of information. It's been really on point. They've given us a lot of advice about the buying process, blah, blah, blah. So you would expect those clients to stick with those agents they've been working really hard with. So if maybe a smaller agency who just fancies or suddenly thinks, right, I'm going to grab those clients who are coming over next week, chances are those clients are already in bed with somebody else. So I think it's a difficult one. I would start getting in there now and start forming those relationships with clients before they can get here. Difficulty with that, of course, is, as you said, there's a lead time from appointment to viewing. It used to be. I remember when I first looked at property in Spain 20 years ago. I think I booked my visit about a year in advance. I was so excited. Now it's a different kind of ball game. I think the average is about a month, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. But of course, it's difficult because you're spending money on marketing and advertising and seeing no tangible benefit in terms of people actively getting out here. So it feels almost a bit counterintuitive. And then, of course, in terms of commissions earned and revenue for the agents, you've probably got another 3 months to wait. So unless you're in it for the long haul, unless you've got cash flow of 6 months, then there's no point.
And this might seem like a strange question, but what about those who are planning to start trading now, the new agents looking to come on the market? Is there opportunity for them, or is it really a you got to be kidding kind of situation? Now ain't the time.
I think there's always opportunity, and I think there's bizarrely probably more opportunities in times when other companies in your sector are going under or suffering. Like the example at the moment to compare it with is somewhere like the high street in different countries where a lot of big names are going, and the airlines, things like that. But the thing is, we will all start shopping again soon. We will all start flying again soon. So those businesses that just haven't been able to make it in this weird time that we're in, they'll be replaced. So from a real estate point of view, people will start buying houses again. People are still doing it now, but in terms of volume, they will do. And the people who haven't survived this weird year, they'll need replacing. And I think there's an opportunity for businesses to come in and maybe shake the market up a little bit. We've seen now how people's working patterns are changing and people's viewing patterns are changing in terms of looking and how they research buying overseas property and how they look and how they first view. A lot of it is now tech enabled, it's virtual viewings, and a lot of agents just aren't doing that. So there is an opportunity for new blood to come in and do that better than anybody else is doing it and to take things forward from there.
I got you. Okay, so then this kind of leads me on to an associated subject, and that is, generally speaking, the press, what other agents are saying, what research is showing here and abroad in the cities, and suggests that the prime real estate sector has stayed fairly comparatively strong, and that the more affected one has been the mid to lower range for obvious reasons we've mentioned before. So something that I've been talking about for a while is, yes, we'd all like to sell luxury real estate because your commission's tenfold and the effort's equivalent, if not less in some cases, to actually process a sale. So there will be a natural temptation if you put one and one together and say, hey, I'd rather sell luxury. That's all there is. Should 2,000 agents suddenly just put all their chips in the luxury sector? What's the catch? Why shouldn't they?
Well, first of all, the figures don't work with 2,000 people trying to do it, because chances are, 1,900 of you aren't going to make it because there simply aren't the volume of buyers at that level. So yes, they're very attractive to work with. What we've noticed in the last 12 months is that they have been able to get here more so than buyers in lower budgets. People at that level tend to be spending a smaller proportion of their life savings than somebody who's investing at maybe 200, 300,000. So it's not as big a decision, even though it's a bigger purchase financially. And yes, it's a really attractive market, isn't it? You know, when you consider that, I think we shared some figures the other day, and economies of scale and all those sorts of things. I mean, yes, I would love to sit here, one man band, no staff issues, no management issues, and see 2 clients a month, sell to one of them each month at 2-3 million euros. Happy days. I have a nice little business, no stress, and make plenty of money. But you can't, certainly as a startup company here, I don't think you can just enter that market like that. To give you an idea, it's, you know, our average sale so far this year has been, well, it's close to €1 million. 20 years ago when we started, I think our average sale was about 200,000. So if you look at our journey as a business, it's taken us 20 years to get our average spend from 200,000 to $1 million. So it's not well, for us anyway, it wasn't a quick journey. I don't think people at that end of the market trust you if you suddenly appear overnight as this, you know, luxury brand kind of thing. I think you've got to earn your stripes. I think you've got to go through the hard slog. You've got to be, you know, people at that level, people at any level, they, you know, they want to trust you. They want to like you. They want to do business with you, but they've got to trust you. Longevity is important. They like to see that you've been around, that you know what you're doing, that you have the networks, that you have the connections in place to help them buy a property at a good price. That you have a visibility. So if you're not in the local magazines or not on the Marbella Golden Mile, that you at least have a presence online and that you know what you're doing. That you also have a stock of listings. And those, you know, you suddenly don't go out and list 4 villas in Sierra Blanca and 4 in Zagaleta overnight. People think they can, but that can take 5 years to do those 8 listings. You know, so it's a slog, and it's a right in the market that's earned rather than someone just going and saying, this is where I want to be. So
could you buy your way into it? So putting it this way, the way I understand it is you kind of either work your way towards it. One way is to focus on listings. If you can somehow become the king of a particular area that is of high value properties, that's your shot. And if all your energies go into becoming a listing agent in a very specific area, and you're successful at that, you got a shot at it probably relatively quickly if you're successful at getting those listings and let the buyers come from the existing network of agents. Or you're going to have to buy your way in, and we're talking big dollars. And I think there is one agency I can think of right now, and I'm not going to name it, in Marbella, that are kind of coming new, but they are spending big money. This isn't somebody with a few grand in the bank to see how it goes and do a little bit of Google AdWords or something like this. You know, you can buy your way in, I think.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think we also underestimate people. People aren't fools. They know if you're a one-man band working in your bedroom. They know if you're exactly with the shower curtain.
We're at the headquarters in Tokyo right now.
They know, and they either like that and want that, or they don't. And I think for instance, we advertised in the game market about 10 years ago. It's a market that I'm familiar with, and our advice from the magazines in that market was that, look, guys, unless you're going to be in our magazine for 6 months, you're just going to get ignored, because people want to see that you're not just in there for the pink pound, that you actually are there for the long term, that you're not there to take advantage of a market that has a high disposable income, but that you're going to add value, whether it's adding value to the community or adding value to the process for the clients. And it was absolutely true. And it's the same here, you know, like the big glossy magazine we have, Essential Magazine, Marbella. If you go in that for a month hoping to establish yourself as a brand in the luxury market, you've got to be in there for years before people start taking you seriously. So I think people do, they see things and they think, hang on, who are these guys? They've just arrived. Yeah, they might be shiny and new and I want to find out more about them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you feel comfortable doing business with them.
I understand. So to summarize what I understand you're saying is that it's unlikely you're going to be successful if you come in and expect to get a foothold into the luxury sector in the short term, unless you have considerable deep pockets, and even then, it may not be possible because it's such a saturated end of the market.
Mm.
So if you were starting out, you would probably, or a friend of yours is starting out, you'd probably give them some realistic brotherly advice and say, start where the volume is at and work your way to the luxury sector. Would that
I
be
think
sound
it's,
about right?
yeah, I think it's good to aim for. And you know what, Alfredo? You can get lucky sometimes. You know, you can land on a deal, whether it's a listing you've got or a client that's recommended to you, a buyer, and they go and spend 5 million euros with you on a house, and you make enough to live off for a year. It can happen.
It's
Problem is,
tempting though, from an agent point of view, though, isn't it, to think that if I can survive on one deal a year,
yeah, there's loads of agents
you
out
know,
there who do that. The problem is, if that one deal doesn't happen, then it's like, ooh,
there's
because
no
you've still
cash
got
flow.
bills to pay, and then you're into your second year, and if you haven't done one in year two, ooh, and then you're out of business. So high risk, high reward, which is why most agents opt for, I guess, the model we're pursuing, which is, you know, you still have to have your bread and butter. And if you get the odd deal here and there at, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 million euros, then wow, fantastic. But we don't rely on that because we, you know, yes, we're in that market to an extent, but we also recognize that you know that it's competitive. Everyone's after those types of clients, and we have to cut our cloth accordingly.
I understand. So on to coming back to the Gustavsson specifically, in this quarter four period from what's been of it so far and what's left of it, a question that I had is: Are developers, as far as you can see, at least down here, still releasing new developments, or are they holding off? Is product coming to market, or they what's the situation?
I would say no. There's no new product coming to market. There are developers out there who are releasing later phases of an existing project. Even then, a lot of those are actually just waiting. It's not a great time to release a new development, let's be honest. Because when you release a new development, you want there to be a fanfare, you want there to be activity, you want to sell units in the first week, first day. And at the moment, there's not really a chance of doing that. So a lot of developers are postponing launches of new phases, new developments until spring, in the hope that we're kind of back to normal and we have footfall, we have volume, we have sales activity, agents can go and view it, get excited about it. At the moment, we're so restricted on what we can do. We're kind of trying to sell things with both arms tied behind our backs. And it's not much fun. But I think developers are just hanging on. So to answer your question, there's not a lot of new stuff coming to market right now, but you know, middle of next year, second quarter of next year, I would expect it to be.
Okay. And one of the things that caught my eye this last week or two is a development which I'd heard about for a while. So I don't think it's news, or the development itself isn't news, but is Epic Marbella by Sierra Blanca Estates. It was picked up by lots of the Spanish financial and real estate press, particularly, as well as some international publications such as Rob Report and stuff like that, because they've kind of aligned themselves. I think something like 50 odd out of 70 of the units are in partnership with Fendi Casa, the sort of interior design
Yeah.
brand, and but that seems to have caught the imagination a little bit, at least of getting some media attention.
Yeah.
This is high end luxury, and the thing I was wondering, and maybe you may be able to tell me, aside from an obvious benefit of getting media attention, which has a value, as we all know, is this something that has value for the buyers as well?
Depends what sort of buyer you are. I mean, Fendi is a you know, you can't get much more high end than Fendi Casa. So if you're buying an apartment, I don't know, say at €1 million or €2 million, and it's all furnished by Fendi, then you should be aware that, you know, 250,000, 300,000 of that spend is on the furniture. And I think, again, you know, people aren't thick. You know, you've got to think, okay, is having the name Fendi Casa associated with what I've just bought, and is having Fendi furniture at whatever the cost may be, you know, am I spending 100,000 over the odds just for the name? And I think people have to make their own mind up on whether they can get similar quality elsewhere at a lower price. or whether they're prepared to have it. And some people are, some people will go and buy a car with the same engine as that car over there, but spend twice as much. And
I suppose it comes down to brand, doesn't it? Brand value.
And there are people who will be loyal to that and who will like it because it's high end. And yes, I want that apartment, and I want the Fendi stuff. And wow, fantastic. And there are going to be some who go, oh, no, because I'm just paying for something I don't necessarily need or would have chosen. I think
I suppose it comes back to what this marketing guru called Seth Godin defined brand as the amount you're willing to pay over what the equivalent would be, and in this case, that's the value, the association with a high value brand brings value to what you're selling, and for some people, that's, like you say, it's not for everybody, but for some people, that's worthwhile.
And no disrespect to that development, because it's a lovely development, but have they had to do that to add have they had to dress it up to sell it? That's the question, isn't it?
Yes, that is the question. Yeah, I don't remember. This is my ignorance. I don't remember hearing anything about this, and I don't know why it's news now, because it's not the first time I've heard of the development, but it is the first time it seems to be getting picked up in November by lots of publications. So it would suggest that although I don't know, that it's a relatively new initiative, or at least one that's been released relatively recently.
Yeah, it's been in discussions, and they launched it quite a while ago, actually, with this Fendi partnership. But I think the Spanish press particularly have picked it up recently. But the Sierra Blanca developers, they've been wanting to develop something on that site for a long time. Don't know if you remember The World.
Is that the same site?
Well, it's linked to it, yeah.
Right.
And the site, I mean, the address is a good one, but from a site point of view, I don't think it's the best. So if you're spending, I don't know what the prices are at the moment, $1.5 million or something like that on an apartment, although it's going to be, I'm sure, because they're great developers, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful inside, stunning apartments, great specifications. But are there better locations? Maybe. So maybe that association with Fendi is just to glam it up a little bit, so people go and walk through the door. And of course, the more people you have walking through your door, the more chance you've got of selling houses.
I mean, it kind of, I'm sure it isn't this, but it does cross over into the principle of, do marketing gimmicks work with real estate, which is quite a boring marketing mix typically, isn't it? It's a bunch of renders with a sea view. You show the penthouse as a representative of the one bedroom facing the wall type place, and it has, at least in the years that I've been involved in it here, it's been a distinct lack of marketing gimmicks, in my view. The last one I remember was...
You're going to mention the Mini, aren't you? You're going to mention the Mini.
The Mini, yeah, the Mini. I mean, I quite like that sort of stuff, because I think, it's a bit boring to take off 20 grand off a price tag of several $100,000. But,
what if you don't want a Mini? What if you don't want,
I know, but it just gets everybody excited and talking, doesn't it? It means, at least from my experience and marketing at the time, in terms of me doing the marketing for agents at the time, it was in everybody's newsletters that month. It was in everybody's landing pages. It gave everybody an excuse to pique interest. So that's on the way in. Then that's as a lead. But then once in, I would imagine, and again, I don't know this as a fact, but I wouldn't be surprised if a large percentage of those free minis became a discount.
Yeah.
And was just, like I say, a gimmick. Which is interesting.
Yeah, and it does what, it's PR, isn't it? And yes. It's great, because as you said, it got a lot of traction, and it was everywhere, a free mini, and I think maybe it's just because I'm old and crusty, and I think, well, hang on, if there's a free mini involved, I'm paying for that somewhere. And it's a bit like, if there's a guaranteed rental, or if there's this, or if there's that, me as a buyer, I'm paying for most of it. If someone's going to give me a free mini that's worth 30,000, I'm paying for that.
I mean, I think perhaps on the higher end, for sure, that it is probably less susceptible to gimmicks of that sort, at least. But in the mid-range, you could argue that it's a talking point. It's the reason why the husband or wife or partner on the sofa, on the tablet, looking at the promotion that says you're going to get a pair of his and hers Rolexes when you buy this flat, would turn around and mention it to the other person. Yeah. And that is half the battle, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think people have a little bit of lethargy when it comes to offers. I know that a lot of developers try it with, free furniture and free this and free that. You can actually say have a free apartment and people would go, no, you're right. Because I think people are just thinking, hang on, what's the catch? What's the con? Who's paying for it? So I think sometimes, I say to a lot of my clients, look, let me just try and negotiate you the best deal possible on the price, which we've been doing for 20 years. Like I'll say to the developer, look, forget the gimmicks, forget this, forget the free toldo, forget it. Let's just talk about the price, and let's sit down and work out what the best price is that you can offer so you're happy, and the best price my client can buy it for so that they're happy. And sometimes that's the best conversation to have. But
But
a
when
lot,
you're in a market where there's 100 different developments that a lot of them look the same as each other, let's face
yeah,
it, at least from a render point of view. I'm sure on the ground it's a different scenario, but from the point of view of the person in Stockholm looking at a landing page or an advert or something like that, this one's 300 grand, this one's 3 million, and the renders look identical almost, and you're thinking, I don't know the difference. Um, Sometimes it's something that when you were talking to the sales director of Nine Lions in Northern Lucia a few weeks ago.
yeah.
And one of the things that I thought was interesting was that he, as I understood it, he was saying that one of the trends that he's noticed is the massive difference it makes showing a new development with furniture in it, the show flat, versus an empty one, and how people keep on trying to buy the show flats. Yeah.
Very often.
So this kind of touches on things like virtual where you have virtual furniture just to show what your house would look like, that sort of thing. But what sort of are you on the ground finding that buyers have a lack of imagination
Oh, totally. Not everyone.
looking at a
And
proper
even
four walls versus somewhere that's nicely decorated?
it's really weird, isn't it? Because when a property is being built, like in the bare brick stage, it always looks small, and then and it's only when you start plastering, painting, but then even then it looks bigger than it did, but still not bigger. And but when you start putting furniture in, it gives the whole thing perspective, and it's absolutely true. And the reason most developers do it is because they have people walking into a show home, and you walk in, and because it's not full of other people's clutter and personal belongings and photos of granny and stuff like that. You walk in there, it's probably the right temperature, the right ambiance. You walk in there and you feel it could be yours, not that it's somebody else's. And that's a huge emotional and psychological pull. So a lot of developers now, I mean, we work with a furniture company called Marbella Interiors, and there was a development down in Capopino called Dunes Beach, and they kind of hit the buffet a little bit with sales activity. They'd had a couple of show homes that had been done, but not done well. And Marbella Interiors went in there, and I think they did 4 show homes, and they sold, I think, 4 within a month. And the guy there was just like, wow,
It's a relatively small investment. Obviously, depends who's doing it, but
absolutely. I
something
think
like from Marbella Interiors, what sort of
20
price
grand a
tag are you
pop.
looking at?
Yeah, 20,000 a pop. I think they did a deal with him so that they paid the cost price of the furniture, and then the balance when they sold it worked out great for them. And you know, so you come to some developers, and some developers are really forward thinking about this. Like people like Taylor Wimpey, for instance, they will build a porter cabin to scale on the site of a new development and kit it out like a show home. And once you're in it, you could be in anything, but it gives you an idea of what it's going to be like. So there's no excuse, oh, well, we can't do a show home because we haven't started building yet. Sorry, there are alternatives. Buy a few containers and do it out, and I'm absolutely, I mean, we turn developers away sometimes who want to work with us and they want us to promote their products. And we say, okay, are you willing to invest in some sort of showroom? Or no, because the product sells itself. No, it doesn't. Nothing sells itself, So we have constant debates with people, and as we just touched on, it's not expensive to do if you come to an arrangement with a good furniture company. And the idea is keep selling it. Yeah, great. If you sell it as it is, great. Do another one. Do another
Yeah,
one. Do another one. Rinse and repeat 60 times, and you've sold the whole thing.
it's strange how they do look smaller with nothing in them,
Yeah,
isn't it? I was promoting a video of a penthouse in Marbella last week, and it has no furniture whatsoever. Nice, beautiful inside, impeccable, but
yeah,
zero furniture, and it looks tiny. and you look at the stats of the build size, and it's pretty big.
Yeah,
And
and
suddenly you look at something equivalent with like in the same development with furniture, and it looks huge. And it's such a strange paradox that you have places looking bigger with more stuff in it.
it's incredible. People think it's the other way, but no, it's not. I mean, I'm obsessed about bedrooms because I'm 191 centimeters, so I need a 2 meter length bed. So I'm always like, whenever I go in place, I can't fit a bed in there. And more often than not, the developers thought about that and thought, yeah, you can. It's just looking at it, thinking, hang on a minute, this isn't going to work. But a 180 by 2 meter bed, yeah, once you get it in there, the room looks much bigger.
I think I remember Mark mentioning that an example of somebody looking to buy one of these properties that are start about 600 odd thousand euros, and concerned that that they didn't like the curtains. That's quite a funny sort of way of looking at it, thinking that really the importance of getting the showroom and the interior design presentation of how you're selling this as a place to live, and how crucial that can come down to a 50 euro pair of curtains.
Absolutely vital. And I tell you why it's even more vital as well, because people in the last 9 months have been doing a lot of their first viewings virtually. So they've been relying on us or the developer to swing around with a camera and walk through the show home. If you haven't got a showroom, what are you going to show them? What, an empty apartment that looks tiny? No, come on. So that's what I would be investing in if I were a developer. I would be saying the first thing we need is an amazing show home that basically sells our development for us.
I found, I mean, I might be wrong, so I'll say that as a disclaimer before anybody goes crazy. But I found that the same thing on a more an early stage in the process, like the lead stage, happens with the renders.
Mm.
And I can think of a particular example, which is on two sides. So the first side was when the business started booming again a few years ago. This time around, the world actually, Sierra Blanca was amazing, wasn't it? Like a spaceship, and I mean it was probably too futuristic, if anything. But the one that we generated, the firm I was working at, we generated thousands of leads just on the back of one picture, which was for a development in La Cala called Jardinana. Remember that one?
Mm.
And it had a corner infinity pool penthouse sort of image.
Yep.
And that picture just generated thousands of leads, just that picture alone.
They call it a halo image, don't they, in marketing? I think it's the halo image or the money shot or whatever you want.
Hero image.
Hero or halo or whatever. But that, because it has to be aspirational. It's got to make people think, I want to be there. They might not be able to afford to buy it, but I want a part of that. I want to be in that little infinity pool on the terrace. Yes, and unless you're going to invest in getting that image right, or those images, or the show flat, or the videos, you might as well be out of the market. You haven't got a chance.
I was involved with a pre-promotion of a development, which I won't mention because I can't, but also in La Cala de Mijas. And the initial set of these are apartments, probably starting about 450K in that area. And the first set of visuals were really crummy, pixelated renders facing the building, just of a building. I mean, it could be an apartment block in Arroyo de la Miel in Benalmádena for all you can see. And it did some pre-publicity probing to see what interest there was all the way through Europe, through property portals, this and the other. Did it for a few months, spent a few €1,000, enough to get a sense, and zero interest from a lead point of view. Then, that I moved on, did other stuff, and then a few months later, a well-known master agent promoter picked it up, and suddenly they'd added the word beach to the name while giving things away. Yeah, I don't know if they did it or the developer themselves. They added beach to the name, and the render was flipped on its side. It was a penthouse shot where you could see all of the coast and the sea and the panoramic sea view. And I was still doing, for other agents, including yourself, lead gen. And something that I had known had zero interest from a lead gen point of view. Now, with that image, became a hero shot, and there was jet leads flying in. Now, at that point, you still don't know what the development's going to sell, so that's like half the fight, isn't it? Then it comes down to the development itself, which is where you pick up on this, and that's when you can't hide it. If something is a bad product, it's a bad product, but that applies to anything in marketing. But I've seen it several times where how something is presented is half the battle, and both from the lead point of view as well as in your case when you're doing the viewing and how it's staged.
I always imagine it's a shop window. You know, we're not retail, but if you're Marks and Spencers, you're going to put what you consider to be your best woman's dress, your best men's suit in the window to get people in, aren't you? And it's no different here. You know, if you've got crummy photograph, I mean, that's why we always say to our vendors, you know, they'll say, "Oh, use my photographs." No, thanks. Because your photographs probably weren't taken by a professional with a wide angle lens on a sunny day and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, so you have to get everything right. And it's so important. As you said, and we've seen, like you say, you know, we've seen lots of developments who've been through the motions of trying to get off the ground and haven't been able to. And then they go to a professional outfit who know what they're doing. And all of a sudden it becomes saleable.
Okay, well, with that, I think we've fixed the world.
We're
optimistic about Q1.
Christmas, yeah.
And yeah, I suppose now it's get ready, hold on, and be ready for when we get the influx. I mean, at the moment we're at a worst potential possible state, aren't we? Where we can't even leave your municipality from a practical point of view.
It's weird because we're not theoretically supposed to take clients with us because they're not working. We might be, so we might be okay to move around, but our clients aren't. So it's like, okay, do we hide them in the boot? You know, how's this going to work? Are they going to get stopped and fined? So it's just a bit of a mess at the moment. And I think with Christmas approaching, everyone's just trying to grab a few days with their loved ones and enjoy themselves and then go and get the jab. And then hopefully the world will return to some sort of normality early part of next year.
I think finances permitting from most people, there's good reason to be optimistic.
Well, I want to go away. I mean, I don't know about you. I've got a list of 3 or 4 places. I'm just going to book as soon as we're allowed to. I'm out of here. But then, of course, I'll be out of here, and clients will be coming this way, and I'll miss the boat. So I need to make sure we've got people here.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. And
no problem. My pleasure. Thanks.
Hopefully, January we're going to have some very good news to report on how things are progressing with the vaccines and flights and restrictions.
Hey, we've still got December. You know, December might be a great surprise and a great month. Who knows?
I think, it doesn't take a lot, does it?
No.
It doesn't take a lot of people, like you just said, are dying to get away. And it's not just to make their property purchase. So give it a chance to fly off for a long weekend to Marbella, if airports permitting, and that you never know what you're going to see. We know it's going to be disrupted. So our normal patterns, where we kind of close shop at mid-December and keep things rolling in the background with very little energy, you just don't know. It could be the craziest times that we could have.
Yeah, I mean, I was up at Alcazaba Lagoon yesterday because we have it was repeated on A Place in the Sun on BBC Two, I think it is. A few weeks ago. So we were inundated with inquiries, and I think we've got 17 people interested in it, and we've got 3 or 4 of those are very interested. So I went up and did a few videos and stuff like that, and they're talking about maybe going for it over the phone. I did videos of the best available 3 beds, the best available 2 beds, 2 or 3 of each. There's a special deal on at the moment. If you reserve before the end of the year, you get 6 months, your first 6 months community fees paid, which, do you know what? It's actually a good little.
See, I told you.
Yeah, because it's a cash flow thing, isn't it? People thinking, oh God, I've got to pay €300 a month, and I'm probably not going to be there. But if the developer's paying for it, then hey, happy days. So, we may do a few deals in December. You never know.
Great, thank you very much for your time, and let's speak again in January.
Take care.